Struggling mother and baby rejected at store. Miraculous moment with a millionaire revealed. Sarah stood at the entrance of Harris Grocery, clutching a tattered list in one hand and a tired baby Charlie in the other. Her heart raced as she navigated the familiar aisles, each step a battle against the weight of her reality. Just another day packed with a million responsibilities, yet she wore a smile, the kind that didn't quite reach her eyes. As she grabbed essentials, whispers floated from the other shoppers, familiar faces that had seen her struggles but rarely spoke of them. Today, the air felt heavy, thick with unwelcome tension. When she finally reached the checkout, her purse trembled in her hands. She felt the worn-out credit card, each scratch a reminder of the weeks that had slipped through her fingers. "Please, just work this time," she whispered under her breath. But hope crumbled as the cashier shook her head. "I'm sorry, ma'am. It's been declined." The world around Sarah went silent. Her chest tightened, and a blush crept up her neck as curious eyes began to fixate on her. She offered to leave some items behind, anything to spare her the sting of humiliation, but the clerk's voice turned cold. Panic clawed at her throat. "You have to pay in full." A distinct murmur rippled through the line, whispers sharper than knives that buried deep in her heart. As Sarah hurried out of the store, tears blurred her vision. She cradled Charlie against her chest, but it was hardly comforting. "I'm so sorry, baby," she choked out, tears streaming down her cheeks. As their small town buzzed away from her, she caught sight of Thomas, the town's new millionaire, casually dismissing the struggles of locals with a flick of his wrist. "These people don't understand how to make it in the real world," he scoffed, laughing with the regulars who kept their heads down. Each word felt like a slap, leaving bruises on her already aching spirit, but fate, it seemed, had plans for Sarah. In the days that followed, her story spread like wildfire. Every whispered judgment transformed into an embrace of support. The townspeople rallied for her, gathering around the cafe where she worked, sharing stories of resilience and grit. And for Thomas, something began to shift. Every time he entered that cafe to get his office coffee, he observed Sarah's determination. He watched her laugh with an elderly patron, the way her smile lit up the dingy cafe like sunshine through a window. Each time he visited, the warmth of small-town camaraderie overcame his icy judgments. When he saw how she held Charlie, her gentle hands soothing him back to calmness, his heart tightened painfully in his chest. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but just as Thomas began to consider stepping outside of his comfort zone, a storm brewed on the horizon. A land development threat loomed over the town, threatening local businesses, including the cafe. Standing on the edge of a turning point, he overheard Sarah comforting another mother, reassuring her not to lose hope, that they'd find a way through this together. As he listened to her words, he felt a fire ignite within him. He was on the brink of deciding whether to help them, but could he bridge the chasm between his privilege and their plight? His heart raced with uncertainty. Would Sarah ever see him as anything but an outsider? Would he have the courage to take a stand? The moment hummed like a loaded gun. Thomas stood frozen in the cafe, the clatter of cups and laughter fading into a muffled backdrop. He could see Sarah, her face a tapestry of resilience, comforting that mother with a warmth that felt like home. Inside, he wrestled with conflicting emotions: guilt, admiration, and an unsettling desire to jump into that chaos, to be a part of something more significant than himself. Finally, he made a choice. He strode toward the counter, his heart drumming in his ears, and ordered a coffee his usual. But as he waited, he couldn't shake the feeling that today could be different. Wiping his clammy hands on his slacks, he turned to look at Sarah again. She was smiling, genuinely smiling, sitting with a small group of women who felt like family. He realized then that his wealth and status meant less than this connection they shared. when he finally got his coffee, he took a deep breath and approached her table. "Sarah." The sound of his voice made her eyes widen with surprise. "Mr. Johnson." She stammered, her brows furrowing in confusion. "Can I sit here?" She hesitated, glancing at the other women at the table. There was a collective pause, and then Sarah nodded, pulling a chair closer. "Sure." As Thomas settled into the chair, the atmosphere crackled with unspoken questions. "I just wanted to say," he started, searching for the right words. "I admire what you're doing here. The way you help others, it's inspiring." Her expression shifted. "Inspiring? Really?" He felt exposed under her gaze, the layers of his privilege laid bare. "Yeah, really. He stammered, "I've been thinking a lot about the town's development. It seems wrong to ignore it, especially now." Those words hung in the air like a deep breath waiting to exhale. Sarah's eyes flickered with a mix of hope and skepticism. "What do you mean?" Thomas had crossed a threshold. "I mean that I could help. There are ways to protect local businesses and keep the cafe open. I want to help." For a second, silence consumed them, then Sarah shook her head slightly. "You don't understand, do you? It's not just about money. It's about connection, about community." Her voice trembled slightly, each word carrying weight. "It's easy to write a check, Thomas, but can you stand with us? Can you understand our fight?" He felt color rush to his cheeks, and he nodded, though doubt knotted in his stomach. "Then let me try," he said earnestly. "What can I do? What do you need?" Sarah's expression softened, and a flicker of hope shone in her warm brown eyes. "We need to get everyone together. We need a united front." Thomas felt a surge of determination. "Then let us organize something. A meeting, a rally, whatever it takes. I'll use my connections to amplify your voice." As the words left his mouth, a wave of fear and excitement washed over him. Would he truly be able to bridge that gap? Could he stand with Sarah as an ally? Just then, the cafe door swung open wide, and a gust of cold air swept in, carrying with it the scent of the approaching storm. The chatter around the cafe quieted as everyone turned to see the newcomers, a group of developers clad in tailored suits, their faces shadowed but unmistakable. Thomas and Sarah exchanged a quick glance, both feeling the impending tension. The moment of reckoning had arrived, and they stood on the brink of something that could change everything. "What now?" Sarah whispered, her expression resolute yet anxious. "Now," Thomas replied, his voice low and steady, "we make them hear us." The group of developers strolled in like a well-rehearsed performance, moving with an air of casual authority, their eyes scanning the cafe. Thomas felt a knot tighten in his stomach as they approached, the low murmur of fear rippling through the crowd. It wasn't just a group of strangers, they were the very embodiment of the changes threatening everything Sarah loved about this town. "Excuse me," one of the developers, a tall man with slick back hair, said as he approached the counter. "We're here for a brief community consultation. I hope you all are ready to embrace progress." He flashed a charming smile that felt more like a threat than an invitation. Sarah's fingers curled around the edge of the table, her knuckles white. "What do they want?" she whispered, eyes darting between Thomas and the newcomers. "I don't know." Thomas felt the pressure mounting in his chest, yet something deep inside urged him forward. "But it's not what they want that matters right now. It's what we want." He rose from his seat, adrenaline surging, and stepped toward the group, his heart pounding like a drum. "Excuse me." The word came out louder than he intended, turning heads. All eyes shifted from the developers to him, surprise and curiosity flooding the faces in the cafe, a sense of shared unease hanging in the air. The tall developer turned, eyebrows raised. "And you are?" "Thomas Johnson." "I'm a local resident," he replied, straightening his shoulders, trying to exude confidence, even amidst the uncertainty. "I think it's important we talk about the impact your plans could have on our community." A ripple of whispers emerged from the cafe patrons. They leaned in closer, sensing the tension, hoping for a spark, something to unite them against what felt like a formidable threat. The developer smirked, glancing at his colleagues, as if to say, "Look at this one." Yet Thomas pressed on, gesturing towards Sarah and the other women, who were now rising with him, a wave of solidarity propelling forth. This isn't just a cafe. It's a lifeline for so many people here. It's not just coffee being served, it's connection, tradition, and community. You can't just bulldoze over that. Sarah stepped beside him, her presence igniting the atmosphere. We won't let that happen. We're not here to simply accept whatever comes our way. We're fighting for our homes, our lives. Her voice rang out, sharper and stronger than he had ever heard from her. At that moment, she wasn't just standing beside him, she was standing for everyone who felt powerless. The developers exchanged glances, their confidence faltering just a bit. Listen, we're here to create opportunities, the tall one shot back, but his tone lacked certainty. This town needs growth. Growth shouldn't come at the expense of our future, Thomas replied, his own doubts fading like shadows. True growth comes from nurturing what's already here. A murmur of agreement spread through the cafe, gaining strength, but the developer's demeanor hardened. This is a business discussion. If you want to talk, it'll have to be on our terms. As they began to turn away, Thomas felt a rush of urgency welling inside him. What about a public meeting? He called after them, causing them to pause. Let us bring the community together, everyone who cares about this place. Let us talk about what we really need, not just for profit, but for people. They looked back, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. For a moment, Thomas sensed a crack in their armor. They knew they were standing against a growing force within the cafe, a collective will that wanted a voice. Fine, the tall developer replied hesitantly. We'll consider it. But don't expect this to be simple. With that, they turned, leaving a wave of murmurs and uncertainty in their wake. The air around them felt charged, a spark igniting dreams that had long been buried. Thomas turned to face Sarah, their eyes meeting in a moment of shared determination. There was hope in this fight, a promise of transformation, not just for the cafe, but for the community. Is this really happening? Sarah asked. Breathless, Thomas nodded, exhilaration mixing with disbelief. I think we can make it happen. But we need to rally everyone, fast. As he spoke, the cafe doors swung open yet again, and an unexpected visitor stepped inside, catching everyone off guard. Did someone call for the people's champion? Each word felt like a call to arms. The cafe fell silent, all eyes turning toward the newcomer. A woman stood tall in the middle of the room, her bright red jacket clashing with the rustic decor. She was an enigma, wild, determined, and oddly magnetic. The buzz of anticipation filled the air as she casually dropped her oversized bag onto a nearby table, sending clattering sounds echoing through the room. Who are you? Whispered one of the baristas, the curiosity palpable on her face. The woman grinned, her energy infectious. I'm Clara Jacobs, and I hear there's a fight brewing. She winked at Thomas and Sarah, her eyes sparkling with mischief and excitement. I tend to show up when someone needs help. You're not alone in this. Tell me what's going on. Thomas exchanged a wide-eyed glance with Sarah. We're trying to organize a community meeting. The developers think they can walk in here and decide our fate without even listening to us. Is that so? Clara folded her arms, her expression shifting to one of determination. Well, count me in. I'm no stranger to standing up against giants. I've been fighting my own battles in this town for years, navigating murky waters with those who think they can just take what they want. Let us show them what we're made of. A few patrons nodded in agreement, a ripple of support growing among them. The group started to gather closer, the initial fear ebbing away. Thomas felt a flicker of hope and energy ignite within him at Clara's fiery spirit. Clara, can you help us get the word out? He asked, feeling the urgency in his voice. We need to rally everyone we can, small businesses, families, anyone who cares about this community. Absolutely. She declared, her voice rising with conviction. This is about much more than a coffee shop. It's about keeping our heart and soul intact. I'll reach out to my connections and spread the word. We'll make this public meeting happen and turn it into a town-wide event. The atmosphere buzzed with renewed determination, but Clara sensed a worry lingering in the air. Listen, we need to prepare. These developers won't back down quietly. They'll have plans, strategies, and maybe even tactics to undermine the community's voice. Everyone needs to understand what's at stake. Thomas nodded, feeling the urgency crystallize. We need to gather stories. Share what this place means to us, not just the cafe, but the entire community. Real voices, real lives. Right, Clara said, tapping her chin. Let us create a campaign. Let us capture the spirit of our community in words and images. We can do that through social media, flyers, maybe even short videos. Videos? Sarah chimed in, excitement bubbling in her tone. My sister is a filmmaker. She could help us put something together. It could show our stories, paint a picture of why we can't let this happen. The enthusiasm ignited a spark of creativity within Thomas. What if we also invite locals to speak personally at the meeting? Share their experiences. Let their voices echo the passion we all have for this place. Now you're talking. Clara beamed. Let us get to work. We have a voice, and it needs to be heard loud and clear. We'll show them that we won't just accept change, we'll shape it. As the group began to organize, Thomas felt a warmth spread through him. There was a sense of unity, a brotherhood forged in the fire of adversity. They were not just fighting for a cafe, they were fighting for their way of life, for their town's legacy, but another thought gnawed at him: what if this meeting did not bring about the change they hoped for? What if they were overshadowed, silenced again? With renewed energy, the crowd brainstormed until an unexpected voice interrupted, one filled with uncertainty and fear. But what if they ignore us? A soft voice asked from the back of the cafe. The question hung heavy, and Thomas felt the weight of it. They were on the brink of something powerful, yet doubt lingered like a shadow. How could they ensure their voices echoed loud enough to be heard? As the crowd murmured, Clara turned, her gaze fierce. We'll make it impossible for them to ignore us. The determination in her voice sparked a flame within the group, but Thomas still felt a pit of uncertainty. How far were they willing to go? What consequences awaited? He clenched his fists, grounding himself in the moment. The next few days would shape not just their talk but their entire future. And as Clara laid out the next steps with fervor, Thomas couldn't help but wonder, would they truly come together as one, or would their dreams ultimately slip away in the tide of progress? The next day felt electric. The cafe was buzzing like never before. Posters covered the walls, bright colors splashed with messages of support. Thomas stood at the center, flanked by Clara and Sarah, as they strategized under the warm glow of the morning sun. It was an unusual sight in the usually peaceful cafe, but on that day, it felt alive, pulsing with renewed purpose. Okay, everyone has to know why this matters, Thomas started, looking around the group. We're not just saving the cafe. We're protecting our community's heart. He motioned towards a poster where stories and pictures of local businesses were being gathered. It was a tapestry of memories, of families sharing meals, friends meeting for coffee, and children playing nearby. Each story is a thread, Clara added, her voice imbued with conviction. And together, we weave a tapestry that can't be ignored. We must show them that each of these moments is irreplaceable. But beneath the surface of excitement, Thomas felt an undercurrent of anxiety. The developers were still out there, likely plotting, ready to pounce with tricks that could shatter their efforts. He knew they couldn't let fear sabotage their mission. Still, a gnawing sensation tightened his chest as he resolved to remain upbeat for the sake of the group. Sarah spoke up, her eyes flickering with determination. I've talked to my sister. She can shoot interviews with people, bring their stories to life. Just think about it. We share real experiences, and will shine a light on the joy this place brings to so many. Exactly. Clara said, her voice bursting with enthusiasm. We need to organize a day to collect them. We'll set up a mini studio here. People can come in, share their stories, and then we'll edit everything into a powerful video. Thomas's heart raced as he envisioned it. And we can live stream it too. Get everyone involved, the more who participate, the better. It's time for our community to rise up and be heard. They spent hours strategizing, their voices blending together in a symphony of ideas. Laughter and excitement filled the room, but mixed with that was an underlying anxiety. What if the meeting didn't go as planned? What if the developers dismissed their efforts as frivolous? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Clara leaned against the wall, her brows furrowing. Listen, we need to think about how we'll handle backlash. There might be people who don't agree. There might be threats. Her voice trailed off, the gravity of her words sinking in. A wave of tension rolled through the group. The air felt thick with uncertainty. Thomas swallowed hard. But we're not just a group of individuals. They can't silence all of us. We're a community. Clara nodded, but her expression remained serious. Sometimes, community isn't enough. We need to be loud, but we also need to be smart. Strategy matters as much as passion. Suddenly, the door swung open and a familiar, warm voice broke through the tension. What's all this commotion about? It was Mrs. Henderson, the beloved local florist. The room brightened as her presence filled the space. Mrs. Henderson. We are planning a huge community meeting, Sarah rushed to explain. The developers want to tear down our cafe. We're fighting back. Mrs. Henderson's eyes softened, and then a grin broke across her face. I'll bring flowers for the meeting. We need something beautiful to show our spirit. The group burst into laughter, the weight of the day lifting slightly. But as they discussed flowers and decorations, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling of dread at the back of his mind. What if all of this energy and passion ended in heartbreak? What if they couldn't outshine the power of the developers? As the meeting wrapped up for the evening, Clara turned to Thomas and Sarah, her eyes ablaze with determination. Whatever happens, we stand together. We won't let them divide us. The daylight faded into twilight, bringing a calmness that settled over the cafe and the gnawing thoughts of doubt. But above the voices of hope, one question loomed over everything: could their community truly withstand the pressure coming their way, or would they shatter before the storm? With doubt lurking like a shadow, they stepped out into the cool evening air, ready to face the world ahead, not fully aware of the challenges waiting just around the corner. Would their resolve hold, or would they find themselves crumbling like the walls they were fighting to save? The next morning, the cafe radiated an inspiring energy, a stark contrast to the anxiety that had filled the air just hours before. Thomas arrived early, the vibrant posters shimmering like hopeful beacons. He rearranged the furniture, configuring it into a cozy, inviting space for the gathering, a battle station against impending doom. Clara arrived next, her expression bright but determined. So, what's our plan for today? She asked, stepping inside, only to pause as she absorbed the setting. The bright colors seemed to dance around them, weaving a sense of possibility. We start collecting stories, Thomas replied, a spark igniting in his chest. Sarah's sister will be here soon, right? We need to get everyone hyped for sharing. Just as he spoke, Sarah burst through the door, her camera draped around her neck. Ready to roll. People are excited. I've been reaching out all morning, and we've got a line forming already. The buzz of anticipation drowned out any lingering doubts. They swiftly set up a small corner of the cafe with a backdrop made of vibrant flowers, courtesy of Mrs. Henderson. As they worked, their laughter filled the room, growing like delicious yeast bread rising in the warmth. Soon, the sound of excited chatter echoed from outside. The cafe doors swung open repeatedly, friends and neighbors pouring in, eager to contribute their voices. Thomas glanced around, feeling an unexpected warmth wash over him as he saw familiar faces, some nervous yet animated, others confident, ready to share their profound connections to the cafe and what it represented. As people began stepping in front of the camera, each story revealed a thread in the rich tapestry of their community: an elderly couple talking about their first date way back when, or a single mom recalling late-night chats over coffee that brought her back from the brink of isolation. Each moment felt like a spark, fueling their resolve. Suddenly, a familiar figure caught Thomas's eye. It was Mr. Peterson, the local businessman known for his flashy car and even flashier sense of confidence. Thomas had only spoken to him once, at a brief town hall meeting, where it was clear that Mr. Peterson's interests lay elsewhere, often at odds with the very essence of small-town life they were fighting for. "Mind if I share, too?" he called out, offering a disarming smile. Thomas hesitated, unsure what the wealthy businessman might say. Clara exchanged glances with Sarah, both giving slight nods of encouragement. "Sure, Mr. Peterson. We'd love to hear your perspective," Thomas replied, his voice wavering. Stepping into the spotlight, Mr. Peterson cleared his throat. "I'll be honest," he began, his tone unexpectedly sincere. "I remember coming here for my first cup of coffee after moving to this town. It felt warm, inviting. There is something special about local gems like this." A softer side of him emerged, and for just a moment, the community wasn't just an audience, it was a part of him, too. "Protecting places like this matters," he continued, even more fervently. "I didn't get that until now. It's about legacy. About feeling connected." Thomas could hardly believe what he was hearing. The emotional weight was palpable. The community around him cheered, some clapping, others visibly moved by Mr. Peterson's determination to join their cause. As the day unfolded, each story shared crested with raw emotion, blending into the fabric of their campaign. Thomas stood back, watching, trying to soak it all in. But a sense of unease still lingered. What if this moment was fleeting? What if the very people they were trying to engage turned their backs when it counted the most? Just then, as if to answer his silent dread, Clara pulled him aside. "You okay?" she asked, concern knitted into her brow. "You seem distracted." What if this all falls apart? What if we put our hearts out there, only to have it crushed?" Clara stepped closer, her faith unwavering. "But you saw how they reacted. This community needs to know they're not alone. They'll fight. We'll fight together." Outside, a storm brewed. Quietly. Clouds darkened as rumors of the developer's impending visit reached them on the wind. The stakes felt higher now, and Thomas's heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear. Could their collective stories truly shield them against the looming threat? As the community continued to step up and connect, a chilling realization washed over Thomas: they would soon face a defining moment, one that could either crown their efforts with victory or lead to irreversible loss. With shadows growing longer and the tension thickening, he glanced at the group. Whatever was coming next, it was something they couldn't ignore. Could they truly come together when everything was laid on the line? The afternoon light slipped through the cafe windows, casting a warm glow over the gathered crowd. Thomas could feel the weight of anticipation thick in the air. The stories continued to flow, each more heartfelt than the last. But beneath the laughter and tears, apprehension knotted in his stomach, a deeper storm brewing just outside. Suddenly, the cafe doors swung wide, ensnaring everyone's attention. In walked Sarah's sister, Jenna, with her eyes wide and breathless. "Thomas!" she called out, visibly distressed. "You won't believe what I just heard." The chatter faded as everyone turned their focus toward her. Clara exchanged a concerned glance with Thomas. "What is going on?" Thomas asked, his pulse quickening. "It's about the developers," Jenna panted, her hands trembling slightly as she spoke. "I heard they're planning to come here today. A meeting, right here, at the cafe. They want to assess the property." The words hung in the air like a lightning strike, freezing breaths and stilling hearts. The excitement from moments earlier scattered like leaves in the wind. Thomas's mind raced. Why would they come now? Was it to intimidate them, to crush their spirit right when they felt the most united? Do they know about our campaign? Clara asked, her voice laced with worry. Jenna nodded. It didn't take long for them to find out. They think if they can interfere now, we'll back down. But I think we need to act fast. We can't let them damage the momentum we've built. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. The energy shifted. No longer was this just about sharing stories. It was about standing together against a real threat. It was a moment of truth. Okay, everyone, Thomas said, voice steadying despite the storm inside him. We need to organize. We can't let this meeting happen without putting up a fight. A wave of determination washed over the group. They nodded, each person rising to the challenge in their own way, connecting in purpose. As they began to strategize, Thomas glanced at each familiar face, each representing a thread woven into the cafe's fabric. Hearts raced and voices raised. They talked about petitioning, about gathering more stories, about rallying even more people to support their cause. The cafe transformed into a war room, light-hearted laughter giving way to a resolute camaraderie. Then, the sound of a heavy engine rumbled outside, drawing everyone's attention back to the streets. A sleek black car rolled slowly past, and Thomas recognized it instantly. It was Mr. Peterson's. The unexpected sight startled him. Who would have thought that the same businessman who had offered kind words earlier now held such weight in this turbulent moment? As the car parked, the engine rumbling to a halt, something shifted again inside Thomas. This wasn't just their fight anymore. It felt like everyone, the cafe, the community, was standing on a precipice. Is he here for the meeting? Sarah whispered, a hint of dread lacing her words. Thomas squared his shoulders, determination rising within him. Let us find out. He made his way to the front of the cafe, flanked by Clara and Jenna. Together, they pushed the doors open, stepping into uncertain territory. As Mr. Peterson exited his car, the door swung wide, revealing him in sharp contrast to the storm brewing overhead. A silence descended as he approached, and the collective heartbeat of the community echoed in the background. Thomas wanted to believe in the sincerity he had felt earlier, but doubt crept in. Who was he really? Mr. Peterson, Thomas began, confidence building. Now that you're here, I think it's time we talk. The atmosphere shifted again, charged a mix of resolve and trepidation. Could Mr. Peterson stand by them, or would he choose to side with the developers? The moment stretched out, eyes locked on the wealthy businessman, waiting for a sign. What would this unexpected turn of events lead to? Could he be the ally they needed, or would he reinforce their fears? Before he could ponder further, Mr. Peterson lifted his gaze, a flicker of something in his eyes. The anticipation was electric. What would he say? Mr. Peterson's gaze settled on Thomas, and for a brief moment, it felt like the world faded away. The chatter from the cafe behind them, the whispers of worry, all disappeared. It was just the two of them, standing on a precipice of possibility. I've been hearing some interesting things, Peterson finally said, his voice low and steady. And I think I owe it to this community to clarify my intentions. Thomas felt a breath he hadn't known he was holding escape him. Could this be it? The moment of truth they desperately needed? I came here today thinking I might have to intervene. I didn't expect the meeting to be turned upside down like this, Peterson continued, gesturing back toward the cafe that had suddenly become an unlikely fortress for their cause. You understand what's at stake here, don't you? Clara interjected, stepping forward. This isn't just about buildings or land. This is about a community that deserves to thrive, not just survive. Peterson's brow furrowed, and he placed his hands in his pockets, a familiar gesture that felt oddly protective. I do understand. I've seen what happens when developers come in and wipe the slate clean. But there are complexities involved, and I'm not here to play the bad guy. You have a chance to change things, Jenna urged, stepping closer. You can help us. We need someone who knows the truth of the developers' plans. We need your voice. The air thickened with hope and hesitation, and Thomas could feel the tired yet hopeful eyes of the community behind him. They were all leaning in, willing to put everything on the line to protect what they held dear. I know the power of connections, and I could help, Peterson said at last, his eyes searching Thomas's for understanding. But I need to know you and your community are serious. If I risk my reputation here, it needs to be worth it for everyone involved. Then help us show them we won't be intimidated, Thomas replied, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and brave resolve. We need to gather everyone, share our stories, and stand united. Are you in? Peterson paused, and an uncharacteristic softness tugged at his lips. I want to be in. But let us not underestimate them either. They'll fight back, and hard. How do we know you won't just walk away after this? Clara asked, her voice steady but layered with suspicion that he nodded slowly. I won't. I promise. I'll rally support, but we will need a strategy, one that actually moves the needle. The trust was tentative, but a spark ignited amongst the group, a palpable craving for transformation. Let us do this, Thomas said, voice rising in conviction. The group murmured, enthusiasm swelling quietly, but just as they began to map out their plan, the sound of laughter broke through, sharp and intrusive. A group of well-dressed individuals, heading straight for the cafe, approached with dismissive smirks and the aura of menace. Looks like we won't have the luxury of time, Jenna whispered, her earlier resolve disappearing into anxiety. Stay strong, everyone. This is it, Thomas urged, heart racing again. We're here to let them know we won't be silenced. As the newcomers stepped closer, the tension escalated, their intense clear like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Thomas locked eyes with Peterson, who braced himself for what lay ahead. Would they stand together against this looming threat, or would it unravel everything they had fought for? An unexpected silence began to settle again, thick and heavy as uncertainty danced around them. What would happen when the clash began? Would their courage be enough to stand tall even in the darkest of storms? The tension in the air thickened as the group of well-dressed figures strolled toward them with confident strides, the kind that screamed entitlement. There was an unsettling arrogance about them, and Thomas felt a chill wash over him. Can we help you? One of the newcomers sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. The smile on his face didn't reach his eyes, which gleamed with malice. We were just discussing the future of this community, Clara replied, her voice steady but laced with an edge of defiance. The man chuckled, casting a glance at his companions, who joined in his mocking laughter. Ah, the future. You mean the part where we turn this rundown area into something profitable? He gestured dismissively around him. These places are eyesores. You think you can fight progress? The bravado in his tone ignited a fire in Thomas. He stepped forward, fueled by the support of those behind him. Progress doesn't mean crushing people's hearts and homes. We're here to protect what matters to us. The tension shifted, as the newcomers stopped laughing. There was something electric in the air, a charge of determination. Yet, fear still lurked beneath the surface, making Thomas's skin prickle. What's the matter, buddy? One of them asked, raising an eyebrow with mock pity. You think some old stories about a neighborhood will stop our plans? This is business, not a charity. People like you don't matter when dollars are on the line. Maybe not, but people like us are what make this place worth fighting for, Jenna shot back, stepping closer to Thomas, her voice unwavering. The glossy group exchanged glances. There was a flicker of annoyance, but also something else, a hint of uncertainty. Perhaps they didn't expect this kind of resistance. I suggest you leave this to the experts, the same man said, adjusting his expensive suit as if it gave him power. We're infinitely more qualified to decide what happens here. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat, stepping beside Thomas. And yet, sometimes qualifications are about more than just degrees or money. It's about understanding. The people and their stories are key to a community's strength. The smirks faded slightly as they realized someone was willing to push back. Is that so? The first man asked, crossing his arms. What do you know about qualifications? You just enough. Peterson interrupted, his voice rising above the murmur. The seriousness in his tone surprised even Thomas. You have the advantage of power, but it can be challenged. Communities have a way of rising up, especially when their backs are against the wall. A palpable shift occurred, and the group exchanged uneasy glances. Just maybe, this was going as they had planned. As the laughter of the newcomers was replaced by silence, a storm of emotions roared inside Thomas. Here was a rare chance to make a point, to draw a line in the sand. But before Thomas could fully gather his thoughts, a flash of movement caught his eye. An older woman, who was part of the onlooking crowd, stepping forward. I lost my husband to a developer's greed, she said, her voice trembling but resolute. This community is my home. I refuse to let it slip away because of a few who see us as numbers. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, amplifying the courage that was branching out like roots. What do you say we call the news? Someone shouted from the back. Let us show them we are united. The tension was palpable. Would the newcomers laugh again, or would they feel the heat of the community's resolve? The investors scoffed, but uncertainty flickered in their eyes. Thomas could see that the tide was turning. As the crowd rallied, chanting their support, the air felt charged, alive with possibility. Would they harness this momentum and become an unstoppable force? Or would they retreat in the wake of towering odds? The question hung in the air as Thomas clenched his fists, ready to answer. In that moment, he realized this fight was about more than just homes, it was for their future, and it was time to take a stand. But as the chants grew louder, the sudden reaction from the group of investors sent a ripple through the crowd, and Thomas's heart dropped. What drastic move would they make next? The atmosphere in the cafe felt electric, a sea of support washing over everyone as the crowd's energy surged higher. Each chant echoed like a heartbeat pulsating through their small community, swelling with a courage that Thomas had never seen before. But just then, one of the well-dressed developers stepped forward, his voice piercing the air. This is pointless, he sneered, peering down at the gathering. You think your cries echo in the halls of power? You're just a bunch of noise. His arrogance aimed to shatter their resolve, but the glimmer of uncertainty in his eyes belied his words. Maybe it's time you listened, Sarah shot back, stepping up next to Thomas, her fierce expression igniting the tension further. This isn't just noise, it's our lives. You're only seeing numbers on a balance sheet, while we see homes, memories, and families. Her voice reached deep into the hearts of those present, sparking chants of support that rose like flames. Thomas glanced around, catching the eyes of his neighbors' community members, some of whom were fighting through heartache and loss, all standing together. Could they truly make a difference? The developers exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the growing momentum. You don't have a fighting chance, another developer said, shrugging off the feeling of pressure. You're out of your league. On the contrary, Clara interjected, stepping forward with a fist raised in defiance. We're the ones who know this community. We're its heart. And if you don't believe that, you're already losing. The energy in the cafe surged at her words, intertwining every person present. Then, from the back, a voice stepped up. We have a story for every dollar you think makes you powerful. It was Mrs. Henderson, her arms crossed defiantly. And those stories matter far more than anything you could ever lay claim to. A chorus of agreement swelled up, people echoing her sentiment, reaffirming their collective identity. Feeling his heart race, Thomas turned to the investors. You're right about one thing, you don't understand what you're up against, he replied, his voice gaining strength. This isn't just about a cafe, it's about our futures. We'll make your visit today one you won't forget. Just as Thomas spoke those revolutionary words, a loud blast of a horn echoed from outside, drawing all their attention. A caravan of colorful homemade signs rolled into the lot, with friends and neighbors arriving, ready to join their cause. They marched in, holding up banners that read "We are the community and save our cafe." Each display further fueled the rising tide of energy inside the cafe. Thomas felt the swell of hope flood through him. He was no longer standing alone. The tide was shifting, growing larger and infinitely stronger. It felt as if the very ground beneath them was rising to meet their voices. The developers, visibly rattled by this unrelenting spirit, began to reconsider. "This is not over," the lead developer declared, his previous bravado faltering. "We'll be back." With that, they turned to leave, their confidence deflating with every step. The community held its breath as they watched, whispers of victory filling the air, but as the developers fled, Thomas turned to the crowd, eyes shining brightly. "Did you see that? We stood together. We fought back." Bursts of cheers erupted from every corner of the cafe. Sarah clasped her hand over her heart, overwhelmed. Then, in a moment that felt surreal, Mr. Peterson stepped forward. "I'll support this community," he pronounced, his voice resolute. "I will leverage my resources to ensure your voices are heard. Today was just a glimpse of what we can achieve together." Overwhelmed by a flood of emotions, Thomas felt tears prick at his eyes. They'd done it, they had turned the tide. "Let us stand united as we continue this fight," he said, wiping away a tear that threatened to spill. "This is just the beginning." A wave of agreement swelled through the cafe, eyes alight with renewed passion. The walls felt less like confines and more like a sanctuary filled with people who believed in something greater. They were a family, forged through hardship and determination, ready to face whatever challenge lay ahead. In that moment of triumph, laughter bubbled up, mingling with tears of joy. They had tasted victory. But even deeper than the sweet feeling of success was the connection. They forged a bond that would carry them through the trials to come. Sarah looked at each person around her and felt an overwhelming warmth. Hope radiated like rays of sunshine breaking through storm clouds, but amid the joy, an urgent thought struck Thomas: now we must prepare for our meeting with the developers. They will be coming back, and we need to be ready. The cafe buzzed with excitement, brainstorming the next steps. They formed a strategy, wanting everyone to share in their stories, to amplify the voices of the community they so dearly loved. In sharing their truths, they would build a bridge of connection that no amount of wealth could dismantle. And they wouldn't do it alone, they now had allies standing firmly beside them. In that moment, their stories became a symphony synchronizing in a powerful dawn of change, beating with pride, love, and fierce determination. As the cafe doors swung open to let the chilling air in, Sarah stood firm alongside Thomas, Clara, and the rest of the community. "Together, we'll show them what a community really looks like." And just like that, the dappled sunlight outside illuminated their bright faces as they stepped into the future united, hopeful, and stronger than ever. Now that you've experienced this incredible transformation, let's make sure you stay connected to more inspiring stories. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive tales that warm your heart. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the positivity flowing. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your thoughts matter to us. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. They'll thank you for it later. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second.